My name is John England from Mindsystems, and it's my pleasure today to be your guide on an introduction to the Belbin Team role system. We call it the people puzzle. But what do you need to solve the puzzle? Well, the solution can be stated quite simply. You need the right people in the right place at the right time. But how do we do that? The whole thing started with the Belbin Team role system. Dr. Meredith Belbin was working at Henley Management College in the 50s. Those of you who are not familiar with Henley, it's probably equivalent to Harvard in terms of management development. They were running some high-end courses for people on their way to becoming leaders of industry, and the courses were not only expensive to run, but they were expensive for the organization in terms of the time people had to spend away. So it was very important that the courses were as efficient as possible. This started Dr. Belbin, together with some other people, to start looking at the most commonly used training device in management training, and that is the syndicate. How could you put syndicates together in a way that would make them work at optimal efficiency? Well, they started using some of the high-end psychometric tests such as 16PF and the Watson-Glaser critical thinking test, and they gradually came to the conclusion that there were 9 groups of behaviors. Now, I deliberately use the word behavior because we've got to ask the question, are we interested in personality or behavior? I must admit I'm using the word personality and behavior rather loosely, but really what we want in a business is, yes, we would like someone with a nice personality, but we want someone with the correct behavior that matches the job, matches the organization, and matches the people that they work with. So how can we measure behavior? Well, Belbin says that behavior really is a result of everything that happens to us. Whereas perhaps a personality test is a precise measurement of exactly what we are, behavior is shaped by all of our experiences. So, for example, our mental ability clearly comes into it, and IQ, and the personality profile, and more today, people are paying attention to EQ, emotional intelligence. How emotionally equipped is someone to deal with a particular situation? For example, one of the highest stress jobs in industry at the moment, working in a call center. Yet emotional intelligence tests are not usually done for that sort of person. Experience has a great deal of effect, both personal and public experience. For example, there are generally 2 types of people. You can say that people are trusting or not exactly untrusting, but they're wary before they give their trust. Imagine someone who'd lost their job and perhaps a partner had died. Can you imagine how trusting they would be of life in general? So you can see experience shapes the way you think to a large extent. And in the same way, the environment, your work, your family, the social environment has a great deal of effect on the way we behave, and this is particularly noticeable in Australia, where I think at the last count there were something like 46 different languages, which implies 46 different cultures in existence. Government and community. This culture, which is a side of the language. Different cultures have different values, different thinking styles, and this comes from ethnic background. And then there are political constraints, which can be financial, physical, geographical. Geographic constraints are quite considerable in Australia, and the resources you have available. All of these things come together to meet behavior. And you would be quite right in thinking that behavior is to some extent a moving target. However, it is interesting to note that in general, out of the 9 Belbin profile items, the top 2 or 3 remain stable. All of these things come together to give us team roles, the Belbin team roles. Now, the individual benefits of being able to measure team roles are, because Belbin does a 360 approach, in other words, you have observers rather than just a self-perception, you understand the impact you have on others. This is a critical part of personal and business development, i.e. self-awareness. It allows you to improve communication strategy dramatically and also your business strategy. The team benefits are better decisions, less conflicts, synergy, speed with which they come to decisions and speed with which they recover from unfortunate events, and their effectiveness. For the company, it's achieving more with less, reducing overheads, more effective recruiting, aid to succession planning, and it gives a results-orientated approach. And we have the 9 team roles. Now let's look at them in some detail. The first one we'll look at is the plant. The first thing I want you to notice is that there are 2 comments will appear, one in green and one in red. The green one is the strength of that particular team role. The red is what Belbin calls the allowable weakness. In other words, every coin has 2 sides, and for every strength there's an area with which you've got to be a little careful. You notice the symbol for the plant is the light bulb. They're the ideas person. This concept of plant came into being that if you get a stable group and plant one of these people into that stable group, rather the same way as putting a grain of sand into an oyster, it causes eventually a pearl to form through irritation, and that's exactly the way the plant works, because they can always see new ways of doing things. The coordinator. Their confident and mature good chairperson clarifies and promotes decision making. They're often seen as manipulative and they offload personal work. They are very, very important when it comes to coordinating a group. Typically, the person who runs a meeting is the senior person present, but in reality, it should be the best coordinator. The shaper. The symbol for the shaper is a stock whip. They're challenging, dynamic, they thrive on pressure, drive, and the courage to overcome obstacles. They can be wrong, but they're never uncertain. The monitor evaluator. This is really an analytic sort of person. They see everything, they hear everything. The team worker. I often think of the team worker as the oil or the lubricant that oils the wheels in a team. Don't ask them though to make difficult decisions because they tend to be indecisive. However, they are receptive, diplomatic, they listen, they build, they avert friction, and they are extremely loyal. The implementer is disciplined and reliable. Give them an idea and they will turn it brilliantly into a finished product. Don't ask them though to come up with a new idea. The completer finisher is the person that you probably need for the quality control position. They're painstaking, conscientious, they're anxious, they search out errors in admission, they deliver on time. They're reluctant to delegate and they tend to worry too much. The specialist is an interesting role and it's probably the last one to be decided upon. It's someone who's single-minded, self-starting and dedicated. They tend to have a great deal of knowledge in a small or narrow area. Resource investigator. They are the communicators. They're enthusiastic. They develop opportunities. They will start lots of projects but rarely finish them. They are typical salespeople. Now, in summary, the Belbin Team Role System offers start to finish HR support, recruitment support, and particularly in selection and job definition, team selection and development, guidance to individual and team management, succession planning and support. Let's look at how Belbin can help in putting teams together. In this interactive diagram, we can choose any particular one, and we'll start with the coordinator. And we can see that the coordinator will work very well with a boss who's a shaper, a colleague who's a team worker, or an implementer, and a subordinate's a completer finisher. They will not work well with a boss who's a completer finisher, a colleague who's a completer finisher or a specialist, and a subordinate who's a shaper, and so on. We can look at any one of these groups and see exactly what the consequences will be of a particular mix. Well, that was an end to the brief introduction to the Belbin Team Role System. If you want more information or you want to see practical examples of how Belbin can work, please go to our Critical Foresight. Thank you.